Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings, they're not under consideration. The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. Joining me today is Wifey from the Chicken Mind Nuggets podcast. Good evening. Why don't you tell the people about your show a little bit?
Hi, Aaron. So my name is Wifey. I am the host and the creator of the Chicken Mind Nuggets podcast. It's a podcast that combines my personal experiences with a little bit of science, a little bit of transformation, and they're all under about 10 minutes, except for one really great interview episode that I did as a Halloween special. But it's a micro podcast designed to be short enough so that way you can digest it throughout your day. You can listen to my show anywhere on any major or minor podcast platform, anywhere from iTunes to Pandora. I have a Instagram and a Twitter account for social media, and I also have a website, chickenmindnuggets.com.
All right, excellent, cool. I actually kind of found it was funny that like you said, you do have there's little short, easily digestible tidbits. You can squeeze them in on a break or whatever if you happen to be so inclined. And I thought it was kind of funny. Something I did not realize, like I didn't make the connection until yesterday, I think, for whatever reason. Now you said, and if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. But in one of the episodes where you were mentioning living in a tiny house,
Yes.
and having your loft area, it was actually the fitted sheet episode.
Oh, fitted sheet. Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know what, like I said, I don't know why, but it occurred to me yesterday while I was doing some other stuff. And I was like, I said, she does tiny episodes and she lives in a tiny house. And that made me chuckle. I was just like, that's funny. Everything's, compact.
Everything's micro, right?
Yeah. And, I think actually, I gotta say, I think that's pretty cool too. So,
Thank you. Well, I'll correct you a little bit. I lived in a tiny house. So I built it and lived in it for 5 years,
okay.
and amazing experience. I don't regret any of it. I still have it. But there came an opportunity for my husband and I to get a big house. And by big house, I mean it's really big. We have a big lot, 4 bedrooms, and it was an opportunity that we couldn't pass up. I've got the most amazing 30-year-old fruit trees in the backyard, a whole garden, things that I have been wanting to do but couldn't do in a tiny house because I lived in an RV park. And this also gave my husband the space to do the things that he wanted to do in his office. So, the space, our house also has a giant RV space. So, tiny house was able to just back right in. It was a hard decision, really hard, but I just kind of looked at the whole picture and went, well, I'm not getting rid of tiny house at all. And I can go in it whenever I want, but I can have that garden. I can finally grow food. I can do all these amazing things with plants. And tiny house will become a kind of meditation space. It will be my painting space, my little I don't like calling it a she shack, but essentially it is now. And so I live in a big house, but I still have tiny house. It's just a couple feet away. It's not going to go anywhere.
Okay. Well, that's very cool. Yeah. I mean, it's good to have a place that you can kind of, yeah, a little retreat, a place where you can zen out and just focus. And I think it's, and I can totally understand, a big lot with places to grow fruit and food. And that's very cool as well. I have a fairly decent sized garden that we're looking at repurposing into, well, not repurposing, but restructuring. We're going to do raised planters instead. But yeah, I mean, compared to a lot of actual big properties, it's not big. But for where I live, it's like 25 by 40 feet. So that's pretty good size for around here, where most of the lots are a quarter acre. So
Oh, definitely. Well, you can grow so much food in just a small amount of space, and there's all sorts of resources online and books about micro gardening and all you can eat in 12 square feet, things like that. And you can grow so much in just a small space.
yeah, and it's it's I find it personally, I find it kind of fulfilling on top of everything else. It's there's something very satisfying about being able to grow my own food, but unfortunately, with where we live, like the soil's not the greatest. So on a semi-regular basis, we have to bring in like a dump truck full of mulch if or mushroom compost if we want to have viable soil. And the issue is like we have fantastic drainage, but most of the substrate here is like clay and rocks. So there's a lot of erosion. So it's every couple of years we're bringing in these dump trucks full of soil,
Right.
and that's why we decided to switch over to doing raised planter beds. Uh, Probably next season we'll get those framed up and filled up, and then hopefully I won't have to buy another couple dump trucks full of dirt for a few years.
Well, you can control the environment of raised beds so much easier than in-ground planting, and you can take out dirt that's not working, put in dirt that is working. There's a lot of benefits to it, and that's what
Yeah,
I do. I have a couple things in the ground, not everything, a couple things in the ground, but most of my things are raised bed, and we've had to mulch as well. I live in a really harsh climate. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, so we get the very hot summers, very little rain, very very dry clay soils that are
yeah.
natural dry clay soils. So we've had to do a lot of modifications as well.
I can imagine that is very yeah, it's a very different climate. I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Illinois. For now anyway. I'm still trying to convince my wife that we need to relocate. But yeah, like I said, unfortunately it's just we have very clay, and I shouldn't even say rocks. They're boulders basically. My whole yard is boulders if you go more than a foot and a half down. So
Right.
so yeah, everything just washes away. And I actually found out about the boulders when we decided to put a fence up around the yard so we could have a pool for our kid. And the insurance regulations are you have to have it fenced in. So I said, well, we'll just fence in the whole yard, whole back. Well, not the whole backyard, but right immediately behind the house, and that way the dog can go out and be loose and have fun. And it took me about a week just to dig the fence post holes because of how many huge rocks were in my yard.
Oh
It,
gosh.
it it was horrible. I rented a power auger because I was like, oh, I'm going to get this done in a weekend, no problem. And it kept jamming the boring bit, so I had to get a jackhammer and like break the rocks apart so I could get them out of the holes.
Oh, that's awful.
It was a nightmare. I wound up paying my son and three of his friends to just haul rocks for like an entire weekend while I was breaking them up.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and they were like, this was several years ago. They were like 13, 14ish. So they're just like, here, all right, guys, I'll give you $25 each if you haul these wheelbarrows full of rocks over to the other end of the property and dump them out. Okay. And yeah, it was an endeavor to say the least.
I can
And
picture it. Yeah.
but they were all happy, and it only cost me $75 in labor, so it wasn't terrible.
No, not at all.
Now on the other hand, I was completely sunburnt after like the first day, because I really hit the genetic lottery in terms of like I have the George Costanza haircut, so I don't think that's a real good look for me. So I just shaved my head, so like my head got sunburned through my hat. um,
Oh no.
I was just like, wow, I just really ticked all the boxes. And we finished the fence. I started digging the post holes like after work on a Monday afternoon. I finished putting the panels up that following Sunday night. And I went into work the next Monday, and literally everyone I worked with was just like, dude, you look like a lobster.
Oh god.
It was horrible. I was just pink, like horribly, horribly pink. And it was kind of funny because it was just it was a nightmare.
I
I
can
had a
imagine.
couple of my cooks that were just like, Jeff, you look like the special. Thank you guys, thank you. That's fantastic.
That's
And
awesome.
yes, we are having bisque this week. Yes, thank you. But on the upside, like I said, it was the fence was nice and set in place, and the dog likes it, and the kid likes it. And, the cat we had at the time enjoyed it because he would go outside, but he was very boundary trained, um, which is kind of unusual as I understand it for cats. We're working on getting the new cat trained, boundary trained. The old one passed a couple years ago. He was like just about to be turned 20 when he passed away. So he was a older cat, but he thought he was a dog because my wife had him since she was a teenager, and he was raised around her mom bred puppies, teacup poodles. So he grew up around these poodles, and he thought he was a dog. So he was very much like, okay, I stay in the yard. I go outside to go to the potty. I mean, he would use his box, but only if it was raining. He's like,
Oh, yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
I'm not getting wet, but other than that, I'll go outside to pee. And he would like sit at the back door and yell to go outside, and play fetch, and very like attached for a cat. Like he did not like being alone, and yeah, he was a good cat.
Yeah, my boy Marvin passed away a couple years ago. He was 20, and that was the hardest day of my life. He was my son, by all accounts, he was my son. He acted like a little kid, and that was just the hardest day of my life.
So I'm sorry to hear that. It's yeah, it wasn't easy for my wife either. And actually, it wasn't easy for me either at that point when he passed. I'd been in the picture for a dozen years at that point too. So, but yeah, it's never easy. I mean, they are family, and I've never understood the people who can like have animals and not get attached to them. I just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, same here.
Hmm. Want to take a chance just to talk about like I said, I do listen to your show, and I like it because like I said, it's little bit sized pieces, and I do appreciate the way you talk about your experiences and things you've been through, and different approaches, and the little bits of science behind things, and philosophy, and the theories, and I I do appreciate it. And yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting take. Just in a side note, since you were in the Navy, I just want to say thank you for that. I respect the hell out of anybody who did their service time. Yeah,
Oh, no, thank you. Appreciate that.
because
Yeah, it was.
yeah, I come from a long line of Navy people. I can honestly say I didn't serve myself, mostly because I was a jackass when I was younger. Um, I I I didn't. I don't know. Like I said, it's one of my big regrets actually. As an old fart, I'm like I should have done that when I was younger, but I was way too, just basically arrogant. I was way too convinced that I knew everything, and I wasn't about to let anybody tell me nothing.
I was the same way when I joined. I didn't want to join, and I had
Yeah.
to join. And it wasn't a matter of going to jail or joining the Navy. My first husband at the time in 2008, when that recession happened,
Hmm.
it was a pretty rough time. He lost his job that we really depended on, and I wasn't doing good at mine. And so we were starting to put bills on credit cards, and things got rough. So he always wanted to join the military. So we went into a recruiter's office, and they looked at him and said, "You are way too overweight. You're too unhealthy." They looked at me and said, "How about you?" And I said, "We're out of here. Let's go. Can't, absolutely not joining the military." And then I found myself in there 5 weeks later saying, "Sign me up," because we couldn't afford to uh, keep not surviving, essentially. And
Yeah.
so I signed up and I joined, and I went through it. It was an incredibly rough experience, but I'm very grateful at the end that I did it. No longer with that first husband for several reasons, but current husband now is the most amazing person ever, and I met him in the military. So I'm very one of the reasons why I'm grateful I went through it.
And I'm glad it worked out well for you. Like I said, I mean, it's not that we know each other or anything like that, but just from listening to your show, I'm like, okay, I'm glad that those things are hitting properly for her. That you know, I'm as much as I can be kind of a callous jackass to this day. Like I said, I didn't enlist because I was an arrogant bastard, and I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. And I'm still kind of a callous jackass in certain ways, but I still like to hear, when people have things wind up working out for them. Restores a little bit of my faith in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I understand completely. I've got some people that I am, some people at work and some people in personal life that I talk to, and there are people who are really making a difference for themselves and in their lives, and I told them how proud I am of them, how it's amazing that they went through what they went through. They're taking all the steps that they need to, and they're finally getting their life together. And they're the only ones that could do it. They were stuck in a rut and they got themselves out of the rut and they're just living the life that they want. Then there's other people in my life that I know who want to be better and they stay in the rut. They don't do anything to improve themselves. And then they blame other people's successes as if it's a misfortune on them, which is I don't get that at all. I work 12-hour night shifts. I work my butt off, and because of the things that I have, that doesn't mean that the person that my friend that isn't putting forth as much is misfortunate. You know what I mean? They're simply not applying themselves because I could do this, but I'm not going to. I'm lazy. Like, well,
Yeah.
then you
Or well,
cannot say anything about what I'm doing.
yeah. Yeah. I could do this if it wasn't for somebody else already being successful at it. I've never understood that mentality. I mean, it's if you want something and you're not willing to work for it, you really don't want it that badly. And
Exactly, exactly. I've got a couple friends at work who want different positions. And one friend in particular, he's a really good guy, very, very hard worker. And he continuously wants out of his department. So over the course of a couple years, when positions have come up, I've sent him the links. I said, "Hey, this is what you were looking for. You should put in your resume." And each time, "No, I'm gonna wait. No, I'm gonna wait." And then I talked to him. I said, "How are things going?" And he complains about the spot he's at, and I just wanna I just wanna tell him, "Man, put your resume in somewhere else, do something else." I even sent him, links to other companies and said, "Hey, if you want out of the whole thing that bad, here you go." And just no movement, none at all. And I don't I just don't get it, but I do get it because I used to continuously be stuck in a rut and then blame other people and then look at other people and then blame the positions that they're in, blame society, blame things that had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with me. And when you really put forth all the effort to get to where you want to be, you realize that you're stronger and better than you ever thought that you were. You don't have anyone else to blame but yourself, except there are certain circumstances, I will say, where families, relatives, partners, they will hold you back, but and I had a lot of that. But it's still up to the individual, in my opinion, to do whatever they have to do to cut contact and to move forward. And it I want so badly for everyone to get out of whatever situation that they're in to get into something better. And I want to yell at the world, just stop doing all these things that are holding you back and move forward with yourself. But I think that people will only find the pride and the love within themselves if they have that epiphany that they're the ones that can do it. No one else can tell them. People have told them. I've told them. It doesn't work.
yeah, I completely agree, and I actually consider myself very fortunate because I'm one of the people that lost their job when the uh, whole outbreak thing started. Just being a chef was I got into that line of work thinking well, no matter how the world goes, people are always going to need to eat.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the situation changed, and it was like, hey, guess what? If you do this for a living, you're done for a while. And it was a very rough stint for me. But I happened to have a good the position I'm in now. I got there because a very good friend of mine happened to call me up one day, and he said, "Hey, are you still laid off?" And I said, "Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. How you
Thanks
doing?"
for that reminder. How you
Yeah.
doing?
Well, it was actually kind of funny because he knew I was laid off just from us, like chatting on social media and stuff. And I got him to bring me some pallets from the place he was working because I was working on I'm building an outdoor kitchen in my backyard, and I'm doing it all out of pallets because I was laid off and it was free.
Right.
so,
Yeah.
so so I started framing out like a bar and a countertop area, and I'm building an extension so I can put like a cooktop out there and a small prep sink, and so I had my buddy bring me some pallets, and we got to chit chatting, and about a week after he dropped the pallets off, he's like, "Hey, you're still laid off, right?" Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. And he says, "I can't make any promises, but would you be interested in having an interview for to come out and work at the place I'm working?" And I was like, "You mean the place that you're telling me how awesome it is and how much you love it, and how you brought me all the pallets from there because you had a whole loading dock full of them that nobody ever picks up, and you just you were like, how many do I want? I can have as many as I need. That job?" He says, "Yeah, you want an interview or not?" I was like, yes, I want an interview. Thank you. That would be fantastic. Let's change my circumstances here.
Yeah, no kidding. That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so he's like I said, he told me, he's like, "I can't make any promises, but I can promise you an interview. The rest is on you." I'm like, "All right, no worries, man. I interview really well. Let's do this." And so we had the interview, and I was like, all right, I hit that one out of the park. That was fantastic because we wound up doing like a brunch kind of meeting, which was nice. We actually went out and had brunch, and the interview was over like breakfast. So I just after talking to the guy who is now my direct report boss, um, and my buddy was there too, and we were talking about a lot of different aspects of the job. And as we were getting ready to leave, he's like, "All right, I got to be honest with you. I got a couple more people I have to talk to, but I think this went really good." He says, "Are you interested in the spot?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm really interested in this job. I like everything you said. You like everything I said. I think this will click. I think it'll be good." And it doesn't hurt any that somebody I respect professionally as well as being my friend says that this is a great place to work. And he's like, "All right, cool. You'll be hearing from me shortly." He says, "I got to go talk to this other guy downtown Chicago, but he's like coming from a Michelin star place. I don't think he's really going to fit the vibe and blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Okay, cool. No problem." And he's like, "Okay, I'll be calling you in a couple days." And then I didn't hear from him for like 2 weeks. And I started really doubting myself and like hitting a really hard spiral where like, did I screw up? Did I,
Yeah. You
did
start
I
second guessing
come
everything,
off too
right?
hard? Did I come off cocky? I was really second guessing myself. And then I got a phone call from my former employer because it's a big corporate services kind of deal, and they had a position that opened up, and they were looking for an executive chef, and I, but it was really far from where I live. It was like an hour and 20 minutes each
Ooh,
way.
that's far. Yeah.
And I was like, it's gonna have to be a really well-paying job if I'm going to consider this. And they were like, "Well, they'd like you to come out and interview." I already, because my boss had recommended me for the job. The district manager had already, you know, said, "Yeah, I know Aaron. He's a good guy. He seems to know his stuff. I'll set up an appointment or a meeting with the general manager." The general manager called me like 45 minutes after I said I was interested to schedule an interview. And I went out, I drove out there. They said, "Well, we're interested in going forward with this. Would you be able to, since you're on furlough, would you be able to come out here for a few days and help us out because we're shorthanded?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll come help you out, but I have a condition if I'm gonna if I'm gonna come off furlough and come help you out, because realistically, what I'm gonna make as an hourly wage is not worth the drive.
Right.
But I don't want you to tell the staff that I'm here interviewing for the executive chef job. I would just want you to tell them I'm from another account and I'm coming to help out." And he says, well, if that's really what you want, I can do that. I said, no, that's really what I want. I don't want them to know I might be their boss. I want to see how they work when they think I'm just some schlub.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a really
And
good way to put out feelers.
yeah, so I came in for like 3 days. And then on the fourth day with the company, the way they do things is they would do what they call a chef test. For any position above a certain grade, you had to prove you could actually do everything you said you could do. And it was like you get 2 hours and they give you a bunch of random ingredients. You don't get to know what they are ahead of time. And you have to make 4 dishes, 4 courses, and do all the work yourself and you're monitored to make sure you have good sanitation practices and all this other stuff. And you have to take like a 400 question written test.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah, it was a fun day because I showed up on that fourth day and the guy who was like the senior cook in the kitchen was like, "All right, good, you're here, Aaron. I need you to do this, that, this, that, this, and that." And I was like, not today, buddy." And he's like, "What? No, we got to get ready. There's somebody coming in to do a chef test." I said, "Yeah, he's here." And they were just, "Oh, that's you?" I was, "Yeah." Dude, I told you where I live. You think I've been making this drive every day for freaking $16 an hour? No.
Right, yeah.
And he was kind of like, "Oh, good luck, man." And yeah, we went through it all, and the client was happy, and the general manager was pretty content. He's like, "Well, we got a couple more people coming in the next couple of weeks, so I'll let you know as soon as I can." He says, "Is there any chance I can get you to keep coming out here to help with shifts?" And I said, "Nope." Said, "The drive is not worth the money, sir. I told you that. And on
Right.
top of that, it's going to screw up my unemployment."
Yeah, no kidding.
And I said, "Because then if I don't get the job, I'm not going to keep driving out here for an hourly job, and I will have to refile, and I'll lose like 2 weeks of unemployment. I can't do that. We're not in a
Exactly.
position where that's viable." And he was like, "Okay, well, I'll be in touch." And at that point, I was kind of like leaning that direction because I hadn't heard back in several weeks after after being told it would just be a couple days. And literally the day that was last, not this past December, but the previous December. And I drove home in like the first snowstorm of the season to get home. So what was normally an hour and 15 minutes took me almost 3 hours to get home.
Oh, no.
And I walked in the door just in time for my phone to start ringing. And I look and it's like, I don't know anybody in Jersey. So I'm just, hello. And it turned out to be the guy who was, like I said, now my boss. And he's like, "Yeah, hey, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. Um, I don't have a good excuse. I got COVID. I've been isolating for the last 2 weeks."
Oh,
And I said,
good grief.
"Oh, okay." And this was again back in 2020, I think, actually. So it was when it was much more like, "Oh, you have COVID. It's not a 10-day quarantine. It's 14, 15 days of no contact with anybody." And so he had been literally cut off for 2 weeks. That's why he didn't call me back. And he says, "If you're still interested, here's our official offer." And I was like, "Well, it's a couple grand less than this other offer that was tentative, but they haven't called me back yet either." And I was like, "It's closer. It seems like a better environment. It's a Monday through Friday gig as opposed to the other one, which was like rotating weekends and all this other stuff and nights." And I said, "So let's see, a Monday through Friday business hours job for a couple grand less a year, or commuting, headaches, rotating schedules." It's like, "Yeah, I'm going to say tentatively, yes, I will take the offer." And then I called the other place back. I said, I do have to inform these other guys that I'm accepting the offer and give them a chance to counter, just because that's my current employer. I don't want to leave with any bad blood. And he said, "Oh yeah, that's fair, no problem." And so I called the other guy and I said, "Look, it's Friday. You have until Monday to let me know if you guys are interested in making a counter offer, and then I'm going to accept the offer." And Monday rolled around and I hadn't heard back from him, and I accepted the offer, and now I'm very happy.
Good. It sounds
Yeah,
like it all worked out really, really well.
yeah, and it's once I took the job, it was, I mean, it's kind of like you said, where the people that were hemming and hawing about wanting to make changes but didn't want to make the step to take that commitment and take the responsibility to say, all right, well, here's what I got to do to make my situation better. Now I'm working at a place where the like entire corporate culture is about elevating everybody that works there. It's very much very proactive. Like, if you want to better your position, all you got to do is tell us, and we will work with you to get you to the next step, the next stage. And it's just this awesome culture as far as working there,
Good. That's
But
awesome. It's not very often that you hear that you have a culture like that.
very appreciative of it, because I've definitely worked in some really, I mean, working in the food service industry for 20 some years now. I've worked in some really like toxic, horrible, unhealthy situations. I mean, physically and mentally. I used to, my friends and I used to joke about how there has to be something wrong with us just because we wanted to go into food service in the first place. And it's it's not entirely wrong. I mean, anybody who did any extended amount of time in the business is like, oh yeah, no, there's something wrong with like professional cooks. Yeah, there's something wrong with all of them.
No, I get it.
And
I've worked in the restaurant business before.
oh, so there's something wrong with them. I mean, it's definitely a different beast. They're working when everybody else is playing, and by and wide, there's a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms that you pick up working in the restaurant business for too long.
Definitely. I've seen that too.
Yeah, I mean, stress and substance abuse, and for anybody who doesn't know, I highly recommend watching the movie Waiting.
Oh
it's it's
gosh.
it's it's funny, but it seems like a pretty accurate snapshot of some places I've worked. So you said, "Oh gosh," so I take it you've seen it.
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's like I said, it's not my favorite, but like I said, I do think it's fairly representative of the business. Maybe a little exaggerated. I mean, I don't recall anybody ever deliberately exposing themselves in any of the kitchens I've worked in, but
Yeah, same here. No one ever did
yeah,
that.
yeah, I did. But I do recall a lot of like random hookups and the cooks playing pranks on each other, and like people giving the servers crap and servers giving the cooks crap. And well, just in terms of small talk, how's the new year treating you so far?
Not too bad. School started back up for me other than what?
I would say other than being under the weather and all that.
Yeah, no, school started back up, so I'm back in the swing of that, but really no other changes throughout the new year. I'm just excited to hopefully get the garden up and going a little bit more. I have a couple of plants coming in that are going to take a few years to establish, but I'm still really excited about getting all of that up and running.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, it's particularly again in my experience, maybe a little different, slightly different environment, yada yada yada. But like with the fruit trees, I really those take a few years to get going, but like we have some really sweet pear trees that I really enjoy. I'm looking to get some of the Asian pears, the apple pears.
Oh, yeah, those are
That
good.
so they have different names depending on regions, I think. But yeah, they're apparently we're right in the right climate zone where I'm at. So, but they also take like 3 years to take root, and they have to be paired with another pear tree, so they will cross pollinate to get fruit. But like I said, fortunately, I have one pear tree already that has these little red, super sweet pears that are so good, and they're not very big. They're about 3 bites per pear, but
Right.
they're absolutely delicious. And I made some pear cider out of them one year, which was fun.
Oh, that's delicious.
Yeah, it was. I was really happy with it. It was fantastic. It was very refreshing. Had a little kick to it too, but it was it was uh it was a lovely summer drink. And then we also have grapevines. We have Concord grapes, so we also made a lot of grape juice. I think one of these years, for all the stuff I do, I would invest in a fruit press, but No, I'm just stubborn. I just do it the old way. Just
That's okay.
mash everything.
I do as well. I do the same.
Yeah, but yeah. So that's fun, you know. I would always. We tried planting some cherry trees, but they didn't take. It was very sad. They stayed like little shrubs for about 5 years and then just died. It was. I'm still kind of. I'm halfway convinced like something must have been gnawing on the roots or something because I mean there was no visible reason why they went dead. They just one spring did not spring. They were just two little sad trees.
I don't know anything about cherry trees, but I mean, there's a whole bunch of different reasons why that could have not worked. Anything from the soil wasn't the right pH to you didn't have all the right nutrients to it just couldn't establish, had prior issues, possible nematodes in the soil. I mean, there's a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I have to be honest. That's more my wife's side of things. She's really good about all that stuff. She knows. She tests the soil pHs and then she gets the nutrient tests and all that stuff and chops up. We're folding in fish meal and eggshells and compost and she's really good about doing all that stuff. I cook the food. She's better at making the food.
Right.
So we actually complement each other pretty well. So
Oh, good.
she like I said, that's more her side. And it was kind of funny because when we first met, I was just like, "There's, no, you're Dr. Black Thumb. I'm convinced you kill every plant you ever touch."
Oh, God.
And I was partially right. Like I get it's like when the teacher would give you like a half a point for trying to get the answer right.
Yeah.
She did have a hitch for a while where she was like killing all the house plants, but no, anything outside, yeah, she's got that stuff on lock. And so I will give credit where it's due. She is we grew all kinds of stuff that I didn't think would ever grow in our gardens. Like we had Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cabbage and kale and corn and zucchinis and we had these monster eggplants that were gigantic, but there were almost no seeds in them, which was so weird. Like I thought they were going to be really woody and really seedy just because of how big they got, and they were fantastic. They're like super sweet flesh and just a little bit of seeds in them, and they made some fantastic parmesan. And but yeah, I'm putting all the credit squarely on her because I don't know. I can dig holes real good. I can rake. I can weed, but don't ask me how to. I don't know how to do soil pH and making sure. And everything was organic too. It was companion planting and saying this goes with that and that goes with this. And she has a chart, and I just you point, Aaron dig. That that good.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And I find very helpful for our relationship that we both are cognizant of our roles. And that being, I've gotten to the point I just do what I'm told. It's yes, dear. I don't know what I'm talking about. I will let you do it. I mean, obviously, I have my responsibilities as well. I do have my stronger side of things, but that ain't one of them.
Right.
No, I do the bookkeeping and and I do our taxes and ironically enough, I'm actually for somebody who went into a field that is not somebody you would consider being doing the books. It turns out that's a huge part of being a chef, which nobody ever thinks about. Basically, after you reach a certain point, you're more of a bookkeeper than you are anything else because you got to do your ordering and your inventory and your payroll and blah 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 blah. And yeah, so it's a good thing I'm actually good at it.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of internal things like that.
Yeah, and particularly, again, food service industry, it's people don't think about it, but the operating margins are so slender, and people get, well, how come I'm paying this much when I could get that same steak at the grocery store for half price? because you have to cook it. You have to pay for the cooks. You have to pay for the food. You have to pay for the electricity. You have to pay for the dishwasher. You have to pay for the staff. You have to pay for the guy who parks the car. You have to pay for all this stuff. And at the end of the day, we make maybe $1.
Right.
Yeah. Oh boy. Sorry, I don't mean to keep bringing things back to the service industry. It's just, I don't know. That's sort of my default mode.
No, I understand. Well, I mean, it's your job. It's what, it's something that you know a lot about.
Yeah, that's, well, after all these years, I hope I know something about it.
Right.
Uh, I mean, it's one of those things in particular, because I do have, I have my hobbies, and some of them are a little more juvenile, or at least maybe they're being more accepted. But like, I still like to play video games and stuff like that. So sometimes I wind up talking to people if I'm playing a game, and we'll get to talking about something, and I'll mention like, oh yeah, no, I've been doing this for like 20 some years, and they're like, I haven't even been alive that long, and I'm just like, oh god, I'm so old all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah. When people say that, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I I get that one every so often, and particularly I don't know if it's just me, but or if it's a generational thing, but I've noticed like a lot of my kids' friends at some point they hit an age where all of a sudden they're just like, oh yeah, no, now we're buddies, and I'm like, no, I'm still Al's dad. I'm not. We're not buddies just because you can go to the bar now.
Exactly.
It's like we were never gonna all of a sudden be on the same level. I'm still the old fart. Let's remember that, guys, huh? But yeah, interesting bunch of young men at this point, though. They're all in their early 20s now, and I'm not going to allow myself to get into a slump of that I'm old crap. It's not healthy.
No, not at all.
No, but one of the episodes where you were talking about just being able to calm your mind, and I was like, I needed that today.
Which one
Uh,
was that? I've talked about that
yeah, I was
subject.
gonna say it's come up a few times, but this was like, I don't know, episode 8 or 9. Um, I was just, yeah, like I said, I was earlier this morning. I was just kind of went back on Good Pods, just like, oh, I'm gonna go back to the beginning, and it's probably why all this. It was actually right after I had the whole like tiny house moment in my head where I was just like, yeah, I should go back and listen to that. So
I'm trying to
that's
think which episode that I don't know. Is there there was Fitted Sheet is episode 7. The Mole in the Mountain is 6. Crab Pants is 8. The Tao of the Janitor is 9. Any of it sound
actually,
familiar?
yeah, I think it might have been the Tao of the Janitor because I always did like the janitor as well.
Oh, got you. Okay, yeah.
But I'm just thinking that might have been what I was thinking of. It's like I said, it's been a weird day for me today. And like I said, my brain just made that connection today where I couldn't tell you what prompted it, what popped it into my head, but it just kind of like I said, it was just one of those like all of a sudden like aha moments, just like, oh, I get that. That's funny, and it amused me for several minutes. And then I went back to the really mind-numbing job I've been doing at work. I mean, I love my job. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but uh, I have I was given a selection of older recipes that all need to be reviewed, and it's like basically it's like a 2,000 line Excel sheet, and so I have to go through each recipe, pull it up out of the database, review it, make any changes that need to be changed, resave it, submit it. But a lot of them have really nothing that need to be changed, but I still have to review all of them. But there's based on different clients, different variants, so it's reading the same recipe 25 times because they all have to be verified because each client uses a different reference number out of the system. So it's like, oh, okay, how to make biscuits. Flour, water, salt, lard, and reading the same scratch recipe for biscuits 25 times in a row gets a little like, huh. So, yeah, like I said, that's where my brain's just kind of started rolling around and making weird connections because it was not really didn't require a lot of my attention to proofread 25 copies of biscuit recipes,
Right.
and make sure they all had the right instructions on them. Okay, you have 25 minutes at 350. Okay, 25 minutes at and but yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, now the how the janitor attitude, sorry, episode was. I did enjoy that one because the janitor on Scrubs was one of my favorite characters.
Oh yeah, same. He's one of my favorite. I don't watch a lot of TV or movies, but I love the janitor.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't. I watch more. I watched more TV in the, like I said, the time I was laid off, which is where like my wife and I did like binge the entire series of Scrubs because she was watching it, and I sat down and I was like, I like that guy. He's just kind of like a eh. And so we wound up watching the whole shebang over the course of like a week because basically while I was laid off, they kept my benefits active because I was considered furloughed, not laid off. And that was a good thing because my wife had knee surgery, so she couldn't really get around, and I couldn't look really hard for another job. I had to be available if they called me off a furlough. So it was kind of like, okay, well, let's hang out on the couch because you're handicapped and I want to keep you company. And I would like, I'd get up and get her drinks and stuff because she had like, screws in her knee and stuff. So, and we watched more TV in those like 3 weeks and then she went back to school and I went back to school. And, yeah, during that little hiatus it was basically between the spring semester and the summer school semester. We did watch like the entire series, and a lot of times I don't get TV references because, like you said, I don't watch a lot of TV either. But I got that one, and it made me happy. Uh, and, and I'm a big fan of taking joy where you can find it, especially in the little things. So,
Definitely. I binge watch Scrubs a couple of times years ago, and I have a couple of the DVDs. I don't remember up to what season they're put away right now, but they're here for a future project that a friend and I are trying to get off the ground that we can't talk about yet, but hopefully we'll get off the ground.
well, cool. Good luck. I'll be hoping for you. I'll support it when it launches.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that was the other thing. A little while back here, I came to realize all of our DVDs are packed away. I don't know exactly when it happened when we transitioned into not having any physical media readily available, but we had a storm come through and knock out the internet. Uh, I don't know, back in like October. The storm blew over the tree took out the telephone pole blew the oh god, what do you call it? The big canister thing on there exploded and like knocked out the internet for the entire neighborhood. And we didn't have it for several days. And I was like, well, we don't have any cable, we don't have any internet. We can access internet on our phones, but we can't really watch anything on TV. And we were both kind of like, well, that's okay. We have books, and so we were both okay with it. But at the same time, it made me realize we did not have any physical media like that wasn't in a box in our storeroom. And just struck me as kind of funny. Just, I mean, how we got to that point without really being cognizant of getting to that point. Just at some point, we were just like, oh, we stream everything. We don't need our DVDs where we can get at them. And then when we did want to sit down and watch a movie together, I had to go, pull a 50 pound box of DVDs out of a closet that was buried behind a year's worth of other stuff. It was interesting.
Oh yeah, then you got to sort through all of them, and yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the fun part too. We spent so long going through the movies that by the time we decided what we wanted to watch, it was like, well, guess we can pop it in while we go to bed. I mean, it's like 10 o'clock already. And it was a case of like, well, I got to go to work in the morning, so I really don't care if we watch any TV tonight. I putzed around on TikTok and on Twitter, and I have my phone, so I don't need a big screen. I'm fine. And then I said, nah, and then put it down and read a book instead. Although that was also the weirdest week in terms of things for my podcast, because since we didn't have any internet to the house, I was like, how am I going to upload this episode? And I wound up emailing it to myself via my phone, because I connected my phone with the USB cable to my computer just so I could transfer it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it was just like, well, if I wouldn't have been dragging my feet about getting that episode ready to post, because I usually try and have them ready a couple days before they actually drop, just so I know they're uploaded and ready to go. But at this case, I'd been dragging my feet, and I was like, well, I don't have any internet. Will anybody even notice if I don't publish this week? That's the other thing. I like the fact that I do my show mostly for myself. I have like this sort of I have a mental trip up, I guess, where part of me doesn't really believe anybody else actually listens to it. In spite of the fact that people have talked to me about things I've said on my show and been like, yeah, dude, I really agree with you about this, that, and the other. Or, I really, really like what you had to say about this and that. And you're right. People do need to chill out and just be nice to each other. and then it's like, well, if people are actually listening to me, then where they can talk to me about something I said, they might be expecting another episode. But I still have this running thing in the back of my head where it's like, yeah, I got X amount of downloads this week. I didn't know mom had that much time to set up that many fake accounts.
Yeah, I definitely have that go through my mind as well sometimes.
But yeah, I mean, I imagine a lot of people do. I don't think we're that odd. I think we all kind of wonder if anybody's listening or if we're just yelling into the void sometimes. Um, my catch is I'm actually fine with the concept of just yelling into the void, because I always assume that's just all I was doing. Um, but it was good therapy for me, because I was going slightly nuts from just being not being in a kitchen and having other people to vent on all day. So I just figured I'd vent into the ether,
Right.
and it turned out some people actually liked it. So
And that's great. That's why we podcast, to see who else is out
yeah,
there, who else listens.
yeah, and well, that, and I like I said, I really appreciate the community that I found by doing this. I mean, it's been, for the most part, like some of the most supportive people I've come across. And that's the other thing, being an old, as somebody referred to me the other day, an old, which I could go off on that for an hour. Old is not a noun. I am not old is not a person, place, or thing. Like, no, you're an old. Okay, so I'm an old. I'm not going to smack you because I'm an old and I should not behave that way, but part of me wants to. But as an old, I was, I've kind of been one of those like early into the internet people, like when it was all text based, and there was nothing you could click on because you had to type in commands to get on it. And so I kind of remember the old days, and there was some really, really toxic stuff out there, like
Oh, yeah,
just,
definitely.
like the old school elitist nerds that, and nerd didn't used to have the same connotations that it does now. Now it's like everybody kind of wants to be a nerd about something. And it was just a whole different ball game. And that kind of turned me off on the internet for a while, where I was just like, I don't need this crap, it's horrible. And you go on Facebook and you get people that are just awful because they think they've discovered this weird anonymity that allows them to be awful and all this other garbage. And then I find like the independent podcast community, and it's like so many people that are out there just willing to hype each other up and be like, yeah, this is awesome, you got this.
Exactly.
Let's signal boost these posts. Let's be cool. We found people that are into the same thing we're into, even if we're not doing it the same way for the same reasons or about the same subjects. We all got this thing we like to do. Let's hype each other up. Let's support each other. And I'm like, that's so cool. It could be so much worse than it is, but it's generally a pretty great group. I mean, yeah, of course you're always going to get your trolls and your outliers and your little miserable people too, but by and wide, it's been a really awesome community.
Definitely. I found the same. I found mostly supportive people, mostly supportive podcasters. It's been a really good time to get on there and to express what I'm going through as a podcaster, to find so many like-minded people. It's a really helpful community. There's a couple people that aren't, and that's okay. That you'll find that amongst anything.
I'm a big fan of like personal growth. That's another reason why I like your little the little quick tidbits, and makes me feel like it's like, I can when I need an affirmation, I can just click on a quick episode and be like, I'm gonna get something out of this. So
I appreciate that. That's what the show's all about. Hopefully that anyone can pull up any episode from season 1 or this season and get something out of it or relate to it. And I really have enjoyed making them short. I'm not someone who would be able to do very well at going on for an hour or so just talking about those experiences. For me, I can write them, I record them, and I realized that they're short, and that micro podcasting is a great option for my podcast. And it ended up just fitting. And with the way that so many things have gone, with people already multitasking, being busy, or having multiple jobs, or just being on the run, I have gotten a lot of feedback that people appreciate being able to listen to something that's only 5 minutes, something that's only 7 minutes. And so I'm going to keep going that way. Again, there's very few things that are longer than that, longer than about 10 minutes. I did a season 1 binge compilation combining everything from season 1. And then I did a interview with my friend Chuck Bergman, who's a famous psychic, and we did that one for last Halloween. That was an amazing episode. It's actually my second highest rated episode. And I've talked to Chuck. I said, Chuck, how's things going since the interview? He goes, business is booming. So, I'm really
well, that's
happy
awesome.
he's gotten a couple of, interviews from that. Said, hey, I heard you on Wifey's show. I'm like, great. That's awesome. I'm thrilled to hear that.
Well, yeah, that's very cool. I mean, I gotta be honest, I was excited when you said you were interested in, coming and talking to me when I put the post out on Twitter. I was like, oh, cool. Because like I said, I mean, partly, like I said, I live under this assumption that, it's my mom listening 39 times every episode or whatever. But, and again, with the support of the community and everything, I was like, it's really cool and I said on the post too, I was like, if the people I'm familiar with are going to be the first ones I'm talking to, I was like, I appreciate everybody saying, yeah, sure, I'll come on, but I got to at least know whether or not I think we can have a good conversation before I say yes. And that's one of the other reasons why my listening habits have been kind of screwed up for the last couple of weeks, because I've been screening a lot of these other shows that I've just not been familiar with for whatever reason, that were like, yeah, sure, I'll come on. And like, okay, I don't know what your show's about. I'm sorry. I have to admit it. I don't know. And so, but like I said, when you came out, said you would come on, and Ross was like, yeah, I'll come on too, but I'm going to need a couple of weeks so I can, compare him. He's a good guy too. I'm looking forward to getting him in here somewhere.
Yeah, Ross
But
is a great guy. Him and I had a really good interview together as well. I was on his show.
that's cool. Yeah. And yeah, so thank you very much for coming on. Would you like to just one more time tell everybody your website address, or or anything else you'd like to say before we button up?
Sure. My website again is chickenmindnuggets.com. I am on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on any podcast platform that you listen to. You could find me just Chicken Mind Nuggets. And I hope that anyone that listens enjoys the show.
Yeah, and if you listen to me, I sincerely, anybody that listens to me on a regular basis knows I don't say things unless I mean them, and I really think you should go check it out. It's a great show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for coming on. Thank you for giving me some time out of your day. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You as well.
Yeah, and so I guess that's what we had to say.
I'm Mo Rocca, and I'm excited to announce Season 4 of my podcast, Mobituaries. I've got a whole new bunch of stories to share with you about the most fascinating people and things who are no longer with us. From famous figures who died on the very same day, to the things I wish would die, like buffets. All that and much more. Listen to Mobituaries with Mo Rocca wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to another episode of I Had to Say It. If you liked what you heard, leave a review, give us a follow, give me some feedback. And if you didn't like what you heard, leave a review, give me a follow, give me some feedback. I'll try and fix it. Check us out on all the social media platforms. At I Had to Say It Podcast is the trigger for all that stuff, for the search term. And if you want, check out the website, www.ihadtosayitpodcast.com. There's links to people that have been involved with the program, things I've talked about. There are some links available for some merch that we're working on, and there are ways to contact us there as well. And thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.